there was a song, It Had to Be You. And I remember
the same one I would know.
It had to be you. And going like,
That's
wow.
me singing it, by the way.
It had to be you.
That's me again.
Hi, man. That's Bublé.
Congratulations on hosting the Junos.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm so proud, man. Like all jokes aside, I love my country, love my city, and I love the Junos. I always did. I always thought they were such a fair representation of cultures, and we're so unique and different, and all these beautiful cultures mixed together, and genuinely, I think, like each other and respect each other. Nothing's perfect. It's not, some cartoon, but man, being the host and getting to put and like I keep calling it a block party, but have a party where you get to watch all these amazing people and all these eclectic and weird and wonderful artists all meet and drink and share their music.
It's a beautiful thing.
Dude, it really is.
And in Vancouver, which is pretty exciting for you.
Which is pretty damn fine.
What does that mean to you to be doing this at home?
I never left. My kids go to school, the elementary school across from my house, and I love my Vancouver. I'm so proud of my city. I love my city. But as a host of the thing, I mean, I'll be able to, find booze and weed for anyone.
Yeah,
quickly.
I'll be texting you, going,
Absolutely.
Where do I get
this? There's little stores everywhere.
I get to try. I haven't had your whiskey yet, by the way.
I should have brought it.
Well,
I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
You know what? I think the artist's going to have fun. I think it's going to be. I'm trying to push them into building like a lounge.
Yeah.
So that you're a host too. Yeah. There's something really cool about an environment and building a culture that allows everyone to succeed. And part of that for me is not having it be too corporate.
Right.
And I get that it has to be corporate. I get that you got to have sponsorships, and of course,
but you want there to be a bit of a hang. You want there to be
man,
a bit of
a hang.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law is a huge rap fan. Like it's too much. Like he's
obsessed.
Obsessed, and like if we hang and we're drinking, it's like it's a 4-hour study on. He's gonna give me. This is where Snoop came into the, and then Eminem said to him, no, and
then you're going like, check this out. This is Dean Martin live in 1968.
Exactly.
This is really great.
But like he showed me this video of what he thinks is the greatest show that ever got put on, and there's like Eminem and there's Snoop and there's Dr. Dre and there's all these great like iconic rappers, and one comes on, does their 15, and then as he walks and say Eminem, Snoop comes on, they all sort of step back and they have their 40 and they like watch each other work. And I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and you want to have that kind of vibe. You want there to be more of a communal, everyone watching together, everyone hanging out together.
And
I like it.
Remember the Golden Globes, how they used to be? Like just messy, or the Brits?
Yeah.
Just like people just hanging. And by the way,
people getting drunk in their acceptance speeches?
Yes,
Get
and
out
not
of here.
this massive thing of segregation too, where you've got the fans weirdly behind like let the fans be part of it. Like hang, man, like get to, you know what I mean?
I always like when I see an award show and there's like tables around and I can see Tom Hanks's wine has gone down. It's always very fun to me. It's pretty good. This is fun to have you in because we never really got to do this before. I want to go back to the very beginning. Speaking of never leaving, speaking of growing up in Vancouver and Burnaby and that stuff. These are all stories I've heard about you, but I've never heard you tell them. About your grandfather introducing you to this old music, to Frank Sinatra, to Dean Martin, to Sammy, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Can you tell me that story? Like, what do you remember from the early days of him, you being this kid, and him showing you this music?
It's less of a story and more a synopsis of what my whole life has been artistically, and that was little boy, like any other little boy, huge imagination, dreams. I felt very connected to music, more than I think I ever articulated outwardly to anyone. Loved Christmas music. Had a big impact on me, and it was less about the holidays as much as I loved, growing up very Catholic family. Yeah. There was something that magical and deep about the faith and all of that. Yeah. And then, I think it was the music. I mean, my mom would have, Presley and Bing Crosby and all these great, amazing singers with these killer jazz arrangements.
And you dug it.
I dug it. I just dug it. Like it was it just was non-negotiable.
Right.
Like I loved it, and I didn't even know why I loved it. I loved the musicality. I loved the groove. I felt it very deeply. I was about 9 years old, 10 years old. Yeah. My grandpa.
What was his name?
Mitch. He had a couple names. His real name was Demetrio Santaga from Italy. Dad immigrated from Italy. Great grandma, grandpa, and he was this beautiful, funny, amazing human that loved his family. He wanted to teach geography and social studies, but plumbing was a better way to earn money. And even though it was harder, it was a way he could raise his 3 kids. And this beautiful guy loved, just a real Italian-Canadian cat who, was really proud of his culture. And he loved, Frank and Tony and Dean and Bobby Darin. All of them were these American-Italian singers. And so through the house, it was just always playing. And, and he loved the Mills Brothers. And then at about 8 or 9 or 10, I don't know how old I was just a little boy. He had a record from this cat called Vic Dana. And I don't know if Vic Dana was ever a big name, right? But there was a song, It Had to Be You. And I remember
the same one I would know.
It had to be you. And going like,
that's
wow.
me singing it, by the way.
It had to be you.
That's me again.
Hi, man. That's Bublé. I don't know, Tom, have you ever had, I have to ask you, was there ever a piece of work?
Yes.
What was it for you?
When I was 15 or 14, my dad was moving away to the Middle East to teach at a school over there.
Wow.
He was a teacher, and he got offered some kind of job over there to teach in Qatar. And before he left, my family all got together, again, very Catholic family. We got together and we watched "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Oh, I love
and
that movie.
And I heard bluegrass and banjo music and all that stuff. And it's like a light bulb switched.
Wow.
And I went like, that's it. That's the thing.
Wow.
That's the thing I love. That's the thing that I care about, which led to folklore, which led to talking to people extemporaneous. It led to a whole other thing. But I can do. There's a light bulb moment there.
Yeah.
So that was you. You heard. I had to be.
It had to be you, and I was like, I know this. I need to do this.
And could you sing by then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to do this. I want to do this. And then it was my grandfather and me and my grandma sitting around the table with family, and it was him saying, "Sunshine, I want to introduce you to the Ink Spots. I want to. I don't want to set the world on fire." This stuff. And
I love if I didn't care.
If I didn't care.
Yeah, good song.
And then the best is in the middle. There's a guy. I don't know his name, but he'd say, "Honey child, if I didn't care." And I know them all. Like Tom, I know them all. And my grandpa would say, "Sunshine, before Grandpa passes away." Grandpa's an old guy. No, he wasn't an old guy at that time. I thought he was an old guy, but he wasn't. He was 60 years old.
God, a young man.
And I would learn song after song. And he had this old record player, and it had the thing where, the new technology, that the record, he could play it, and then it would tape onto a cassette. So he would make me mixtapes full of the Mills Brothers, the Ink Spots, Ella, Sarah Vaughan, Bennett, and I can keep going through Al Martino, and I just soaked it up. And I mean, when I say soaked it up, I would live with it, and I would listen to Sinatra and the Pied Pipers, and in a night I would have 8 times. I would have Frank, with Dorsey, 8 times, and I would hear "Sometimes I Wonder," over and over again. Then the next song would come on, "Melancholy Baby," and then "Dream," and I would have
is so nice. Eh?
Yes,
yeah,
I would have 25, 35 mixtapes, and I just couldn't stop,
Did you ever hide it from your friends? Like your friends who obviously probably weren't into this kind of music?
Yeah.
Did you ever pretend you were more into Metallica than you were?
Yeah, of course I did. But I didn't pretend. I liked Guns N' Roses. I loved the Beastie Boys. I loved...
But did you hide the stuff that you liked?
Not really. I mean, I think I sometimes through the hallways, listen to a Walkman or something. It would be listening to Conic or something, but pretending I was listening to something harder, probably.
Right.
But something's weird, man. I just loved, it's funny, you're talking about bluegrass.
Yeah.
Stylistically, these are very similar. You know what I mean? They come from a very similar place. They're born in a similar place.
A ballading tradition.
Yeah, and there's there's improvisation and there's jazz and there's this rhythmic
and feeling.
Totally.
Yeah.
Great harmonies. So it's just so tribal and beautiful.
Now, when I was doing the research for this, and God knows I've known you for a while, I didn't know you had a 10-year stretch of living here in Toronto.
Yeah.
Playing bars, I guess doing events and weddings and stuff like that.
Yeah, less weddings and stuff, but more of the bars.
How were you living? Like, what was that time like? I don't know anything about that.
I was living at
time.
Queen and McCall. I was across from Much Music. I would buy cartons of eggs because on Saturday night, these people that were drinking and driving, I was very against that.
Yeah.
And they'd come out of the clubs and it'd be like, 1 in the morning and you'd see a guy stumble to his car. And he'd open the door and then I'd open my window at the Village by the Grange.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Village by the Grange. And I would slide open my window.
And throw an egg at
And
him?
I would take eggs and I'd just rip them. There'd be, what the hell is somebody shooting an egg at me? And you a-hole, don't get in your car. You're going to kill somebody.
What gigs were you doing?
Oh, I was playing, Haysoon this woman Haysoon had a place called the Reservoir Lounge. I was playing the Reservoir Lounge. I used to carry Jeff Healy's guitar. Cool. And go and play gigs with Healy, and there was the bank, and there was Healy's, there was all these different places.
But it wasn't really happening, right? It wasn't really.
No, it was happening in a big way. Like, okay. I mean, listen, was it happening like, was I making good money?
Yeah.
No.
Were you doing this and this and this? And
I was just fighting for gigs and playing and doing corporate stuff if I could get it. I was doing a lot of, I worked at the Winter Garden Theatre doing a show called Swing, Forever Swing.
The famous story about you is that you get this gig at the wedding of the Prime Minister. And I feel like whenever I read stories about you or I hear stories about you, they skip to that. They're like, and he was playing around Toronto. And then he played, but like, that's a big gig to get.
Yeah.
How did you get the gig playing? Which Prime Minister was it?
It was Honorable Brian Mulroney.
How did you?
It was his daughter Caroline.
Right.
And I got it because I had come to a point where I think I was very close to going back to Vancouver.
Tail between your legs a little bit.
Tail between my legs, but I think, waking up to the reality that, just might not happen for me. It'd been a long time. At the time, I had a girlfriend I was real serious about, and we were like, you know what, maybe we go back and start a family. I was like, you know what, I might go to Douglas or go back to university. And I loved broadcast. I mean, I had many friends that were in broadcasting. And they were journalists, and I was like, listen, maybe I'm not going to be the story. Maybe I'll be part of telling the story. And I'm great with that. Like, I just want to be in it. I just want to be. And so I was very close to going back, and I'd done this corporate event for a car company or something. And when I was there, I gave this CD I had, this one of my last indie CDs called Babaloo, to a fellow named Michael McSweeney. And he was this really lovely guy who ended up being very close to the Mulroney family. He was like a right-hand kind of man. I think he was a speechwriter. And the next day, he said, Mila Mulroney's in Toronto, and she'd love to meet you. And I was like, okay. So I went down, and Mila was what a beautiful woman. What a classy, warm, kind person. And told her my story, and she said, my daughter's getting married, and, my husband really, he got the CD. He loves this. And would you want to sing? And I was like, okay. And, and they were so good with me, man.
How was the gig?
It was amazing. They had me stay at their house. I mean, I got to stay at their house and hang, they just took me. And by the way, again, not anybody knew who I was. I had realized they had done sort of the same thing for Celine. They had recognized her talent and sort of fostered that and put her together with David Foster.
There you go.
So there I am at the wedding, and I'm singing Mac the Knife or something, and I look, and there's our Prime Minister with his head, with his arm around Foster, kind of in half headlock. Real proud. Let's look at this guy, David.
But yeah, because the story that I know, again, what I love doing here today is a little bit of like the movie version of the story versus what actually happened. Because the movie version of the story I have in my mind is David Foster, one of the greatest producers in pop music history, says, "There's the guy. He, that's the next guy." But when I did a little bit of digging, it wasn't quite that way.
Not even close. Yeah.
No,
it was the Honorable Brian Mulroney basically. Pushing David. David. Here's what people don't know about David: that he is the most generous. I've never seen another man in this business besides Quincy Jones, who has given as much of his time and effort into helping people. and helping young people. And it'll mean nothing for him. You know, I've watched him, so many parents come to him and say, oh, my daughter's a singer. And the next thing you know, they're sitting in the studio for 2 hours and David's, you know, trying to guide them and help them and do as much as he is that guy. And he wants people to think he's, you know, he's this edgy, you know,
Svengali, gruff guy.
Gruff guy. Yeah. David is a beautiful
But he wasn't
being.
on board. Like he
was not on board at all. He said to me, he kicked me out of his house, as a matter of fact. I came to his house so many times, and I said, you know, what's it going to take? And he said, you are on my radar. Get the out.
Really?
Literally. Yeah. Get out. It's never going to happen. I said, listen, it has to happen. So tell me what has to happen. And he said, look, dude, you're never going to get signed to Warner. That was his, you know, he was with Warner. I'm never going to produce your records. I said, well, what do I got to do? He said, look, $100,000 a track. That's what it costs to do a record like this. And 6 tracks minimum. And, you know, good luck.
Ooh.
And I left, and I had this manager at the time named Beverly Delich, who I had met at the Peony Youth Talent Competition. And she was just a beautiful woman who loved me.
Yeah.
And she literally went bank to bank, no joke.
Taking loans out.
And we found this guy, this amazing guy, and he's like, okay, I'll underwrite this. You know, we had a little, you know, and I came back to Malibu, and I said, hey, David. And we say, here we go. And David went, oh, no.
Yeah.
And even then, it wasn't the end of the story.
Yeah.
Because even then, I ended up starting on this record. I made, you know, we did 4 or 5 days making the record. He brought me, I used to do a lot of opening. I used to open for Olivia Newton-John. I'd open for Jay Leno. And I was in Vegas. And
wow.
He goes, oh, you know, I want Paul Anka to meet you. And I was like, oh, my God, the great Paul Anka.
And a fellow Canadian.
Ottawa guy. And
I love Paul Anka.
So David and I walked in. I was hungover severely. I walked into this. They were in like a mansion kind of thing at the MGM. And David said, roll in a piano. And the staff rolled in a piano. And he said, okay, Mike, you know, sing. What do you want me to sing? Paul said, do My Way.
Ooh.
You know, so I said, and now the end is near. Whatever. I sang a bit. And Paul said, great. I love this. What do you need?
He wrote the song. Actually, whenever people are listening to this, he wrote the song for Sinatra.
Paul wrote it, yeah.
About Sinatra, they thought Sinatra was going to retire at the time.
Yep.
And Paul wrote this sort of like close. And you had to sing the song he wrote for Sinatra for the guy who wrote it, by the way.
And so then Paul was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to come up. I'm going to get the money. You don't need the money from these investors. And so, you know, called the investors. Thank you so much. And blah, 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 blah. And then weirdly, you know, it's about a week later, I'm in the studio. And I'm going to live my dream, man. It's happening.
But Warner still said no.
No. It got weirder.
Okay.
So then I got a phone call.
Yeah.
And it was, I used to answer the phone at David's studio. It's called Chartmaker. I say, hey, Chartmaker here, Michael. What's up? And there was a drummer named J.R. Robinson, one of the greatest drummers of all time.
Legendary drummer.
Michael Jackson, you know, a lot of the off-the-wall stuff, a lot of the Thriller record. A lot of amazing records.
Incredible.
And he called and he goes, hey, Mike. And I go, hey. And he just played on the record, just played Moon Dance or something. And I was like, hey, man. And he goes, hey, dude, I'm just wondering where the check is. And I said, well, I don't know. You know, I'm sure the check is in the mail. No, should have got it. And I was like, well, let me go find out. So I went to the other side of the studio and David said to me, oh, Mike, he said, I just don't even, you know, he said, listen. This is not going to happen with me. And he said, the deal, whatever has been put together, just is not great. And however it came together, you know, I just can't be part of it because it's not going to be good for you. And he said, it fell apart. And
the money wasn't there.
Yeah, man. And I was like, oh my God. And I remember that I couldn't breathe. And
what did you say to him?
It was Kenny G's wedding anniversary, and I was hired to go and sing, and Foster was putting a bunch of stuff together, and I said, David, can we speak in the other room? He said, sure, and I just did the spiel. I said, man, we are making something amazing. I will work my butt off for you. I said, and I understand the deal is falling apart. I said, but I got to ask you something. I'm going to ask you to just give me one shot. Take me to Warner and let me play my case for the president of Warner, Tom Whalley. And David's like, oh, dude, that was putting him in a very awkward position. David had had success as an executive with Josh Groban. It was very early on. And when you do that, when you ask a person like David to bring you in to that meeting, you're basically saying, hey, put your balls on the line for me.
For me, yeah.
And there's going to be, because if this is a yes, it's millions of dollars as an investment for the company.
Yeah.
And but I really kind of put him on the spot, and
he said okay.
And he called me like a day later, and he goes, "Let's see what a 26-year-old little, effer knows about the music business." And he loved me, but it was always tough,
But still, Warner said no.
Well, no, they didn't say no. He walked me into the record. We went to Burbank.
They didn't say no.
We walked in, and the man Tom Wally, who I have a wonderful relationship now with, he's a beautiful guy to me. But that first meeting, dude, man.
What did he tell? I love the story. He said to you
before he didn't even shake my hand. We walked into the studio.
Yeah.
And as I sat down and he was taking his seat, he said, "Why should we sign you? We already have Sinatra on Reprise." And
so for people who are listening, Reprise is the subsidiary of Warner. Sinatra, who had passed away, was signed to Reprise. They were going to make a ton of money on Sinatra reissues. What do you say?
I said, "Mr. Wally, with all due respect, Sinatra's passed. He died." I said, he's passed away. And I said, "Don't bury the music with him." I said, "Give me a chance. I will work harder than any artist on your roster. I will work harder. And if you let me, I will continue the legacy of my heroes. And I will never stop."
What a belief you had in yourself.
I did. And by the way, I knew, look, it wasn't that I was better than other people. I had seen better singers than me. But none of them were as authentic in their true love and passion for the genre.
Yeah. That is there with you, man.
Dude,
I see a lot of little Sinatras and little, and I have to say, from the time I saw you, I was like, this guy really loves it. Like, he means it. This is him. This is not a costume.
Ate it, drank it, studied it, was, So anyway, about 5 days later, I was sitting in my apartment. I was on a treadmill, actually, and the doors flung open, and my grandfather and the manager, Bev Delich, were there, and they said, "Come upstairs." My grandpa winked at me. He said, "Sunshine, you're with Warner Brothers, I think." I got up and called, and Foster was on the phone, and David, I'll never forget it. He said, "Mike, man," he said, "I want to welcome you to the family." He said, "You're never going to have to worry again." He said, "We've got you now." Wow. And I was just, who knew that even after that, Tom, it would take a million other things.
Well, here's the thing, and let's skip ahead a little bit, because it didn't work out right away. It was going pretty good, and then you do something that nobody in that world of crooners, is crooner a bad word?
Crooner's a good word.
Okay, crooners or singers or interpreters of the Great American Songbook do. The worst thing they can do is start writing their own music. Or the worst thing they can do is start playing original music, and then you come out with this thing.
Another airplane, another sunny place. I'm lucky, I know, but I wanna go home. I got to go home. Let me go home.
That's still really pretty, Mike. It really is. It's a beautiful song, man.
Thank you.
Michael Bublé with Home from his 2005 album, It's Time. My guess is, and what I read, is that was a fight to put out.
Yeah, I had written a bunch of songs. Like, I had written at 16, I had written a song called Everything. And it's a little different at that time.
The song, the big one?
Yeah.
And in this crazy
life, exactly.
It's better when I sing it.
It's really good music. But I
know the people listening to this are going, "When's Tom going to sing it?"
I was a songwriter, and I remember saying to David in that first record, I remember sitting at a point, me, him, and Anko and Umberto were sitting there, and I was like, I've got songs, I'm a songwriter. And I remember David saying, yeah, on your solo record. And they would make jokes with me, and
You wrote that when you were 16?
Yeah.
That is you.
Yeah, the difference was, though, I had written it in 3. I had written it, I'd been on a tape recorder in my parents' backyard. And the part that goes, "And in this crazy life and through these crazy times," it used to go, it was like in a waltz. Bum, bum, rum, bum. boom, 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 and we go, and when you sleep tonight, and while you're dreaming, I will know that dreams come true, 'cause when I sleep, in all my dreams, I dream of you. And
that's still very pretty.
It was
very
pretty.
Disney pretty.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and the intro went brum bum boom bum bum.
Yeah, it's a dream is a wish your heart makes.
And I had this musical director and the co-writer, Alan Chang, and we were on a plane, and he was like, "Dude, we need to do this like boom bum boom boom bum bum." This more syncopated thing. Him and I were like, dude, we just loved working together.
That's a great song. Oh, but back to home.
Yeah, so they didn't want it. They didn't want it. No,
they didn't want an original song from you.
Well, come on, dude. I had to fight for others. Like that first idea that when I walked in, David was like, "Let's just make sure that we get an easy dunk here." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He was like, "We're going to call this." Frankly speaking, or strictly sonata or something, and I was like, no. I was like, what are you doing?
Bublé at the Sands.
Like you're gonna kill me. And then even there was a bigger fight because I had loved all of these modern arrangers. There was a guy named Johnny Mandel who was one of the greatest arrangers of all time. He had written "Suicide is Painless" for Matt. Like he was a bad man, and Quincy Jones, and there were all these incredible arrangers. And I was like, we have money, and I know you can call them, and we can reimagine and reinterpret these. I have all these ideas. You know what I mean? Like
because that's what Quincy did on the Sands record. Those were such weird out there arrangements
exactly.
on the Sinatra record.
They were all like, no. Everyone loves the arrangement of "Come Fly with Me." And I would have Tita Khan, Sammy Khan's widow, calling, just do that, just do it with the track.
Wow!
And I was
track.
like, but that's karaoke. Do you know what I mean? I had a really hard time, and I had no power. By the way, man, one of the people's favorite records is that first record. So I'm not dissing it. But, as an artist, I was like, no, I was like, it doesn't matter how well I sing that song. If you use the arrangement of that song that Frank used, I'm going to get killed. Yeah. There's no way I can ever come out from this.
You'll get compared to him.
And so what was lucky for me, I got really lucky. And by the way, and I have to say about David, the first record, his balls were on the line. He was very tentative. He was nervous about making a commercially, successful thing. But as each record would come, the next records, he was so different and so, it was such a joy. And instead of me coming with song ideas or arrangement ideas, it would be him saying, dude, what do you think? You know what I mean? What do you think about? I remember we'd done I had come up with an idea to do. He's like, we should do something by the Beatles, and we're talking about Something in the Way. All these weird.
Sinatra did a great job on that. Yeah.
And I was like, what about Can't Buy Me Love? And at that point, he was like, well, how do you mean? And I was like, well, what about a double time feel?
Yeah, it feels like the Inspector Gadget version of that. It's so cool.
And we went to John Clayton Jr., who's one of the greatest jazz musicians and writers and arrangers, and it became really fun because all of a sudden, I think David, honestly, I think I earned this thing where David went, oh, he lives this. Oh, I should be asking him about. And now what's weird is when all these guys are making their records, they call me and they'll be like, can I get a horn line? Can you give me a swing and refrain on the B section here where something, that just is laid back but swings like crazy, and I love it. Like I love building it like that.
Well, you know the music so well. So I love the fight to make it, and then of course that's when we get introduced to you, and then you become the biggest thing in the entire world, and we know you. But I think right now is an interesting. Can I ask how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 32.
Oh yeah, you're a young-looking 32.
I'm 49.
You're 49.
49.
You're
how old are you? 30-something?
37.
Oh my God.
Come on, 37.
I used to think that was old.
Yeah, I have a lot more gray hair than you do. I'll tell you that much.
I have a lot more hair dye than you do. I can tell you that
much. I was going to say I have a lot more worries. When you were, you got a family? You got youngsters?
Yeah.
You got things are good. You seem to me in the past few years a little more centered. a little less like you're striving to fight. Feels like there's some inner peace, calm, contentedness happening, which doesn't happen in a lot of artists in the world. Am I onto something?
Well, I think, man, I think as you know, better than anybody, if you're allowing that part of your life to be your focus and to be your drive and to be the most important thing, you're living in a dangerous way.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't ever realize that.
Well, I don't. Some people don't have the wife that I have.
Really, she helped you?
Dude, my wife is the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and she's real. And she would say to me, I would be struggling. I'd be sitting in bed, looking up in the air at 4 a.m, afraid that everyone was going to find out what a faker,
Oh.
Well, we all do. We all is this going away?
It just breaks my heart that you do.
Nothing's scary.
You're very successful.
Well, there's nothing scarier than having something and then wondering if it's going to go away.
Yeah.
Because, maybe, God, you have all these doubts and stuff and she would, and what's next? And will the next record tank? And is there another hit song in me? And, how come it was really hard to sell those tickets in Southeast Asia when they weren't hard before? And there's a million things that happen. And my wife would say to me, and she'd look at me, and it helped, we had gone through this thing with my son. And,
last time you were here, we talked about
your
son.
Man, and my wife would look at me and she'd say, Mike, your faith, your family, your relationships, keep all that shit good. Keep all of that. That is your priority. That is your number one, okay? Everything else should be a bonus for you. And that helped to protect me, to protect my weak psyche. I'm a very vulnerable person. I care deeply about how people think of me or what they feel. And even though I want to be cool and say I don't, I do. Listen, I've been through a lot.
Yeah.
By the way, it's why I never left Vancouver.
Grounds you.
Man, I needed the protection. I needed my family there, my sisters, my mom and dad. My beautiful, got the best mom and dad in the world, Tom.
Are they still with us?
Yep, and they're just the best. I mean, honestly, they're the best people. And people, it's funny, they'll meet me or they'll hang, and then they'll meet my family, and they'll go, oh. I think about how my grandpa was 90 years old, and his big worry when he would wake up was basically what kind of sandwich Manette was going to make. And, those are the things, all the relationship worries, the financial struggles, none of those things mattered to him, man. At the end of the day, it was his family. His grandson was there bringing him his McDonald's coffee. And his daughter loved him so much. And they were, you know what I mean? These were the things
and his faith,
and that mattered. Yeah. That's it, man.
So you're telling me if you hold on to those three things, you're sort of untouchable.
I'm not telling you for you. I'm telling you what I need to do for me.
Yeah, but it's good. I think a lot of people listening to this in Canada wouldn't mind hearing that right now.
Yeah, I think we all needed to love each other too.
I'm looking forward to the Junos. Looking forward to being out in Vancouver.
Are you going to be there?
I'm going to be out
there.
Can
I give a little pitch?
Yeah.
I have a friend named Greg Wells, who's
Greg Wells?
Yeah, he's an incredible music producer.
Yeah, he worked with Adele.
Very famous. Yeah. He worked with the Mika Adele. He just did The Wicked.
Lives in Newfoundland, right?
And just bought do you know what he did there?
Bought a church in Newfoundland and converted it.
You know about this?
Yeah.
You really do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, if it happens in Newfoundland, I got my hands all over it.
Can I tell you, man, it means so much to him, and I'm so proud of him and how how proud he is of the culture and everything.
Yeah.
That I just thought that I would love to be able to say it and one day send him a clip of this because he'll be so pumped. I think I'm going to go there, as a matter of fact.
He should come on the show.
He would die to be asked. I feel like sometimes he feels like maybe he's been in America so long that people forget how damn Canadian he is.
Wow.
And it's funny too because I'm like, oh, how many times have you won how many have you been the Junos? And he's like, nah, not really. And I'm like, what?
That tends to happen.
You're like, you should be celebrated.
Not like you though. You got a few of them.
Well, I mean, I bought a lot of them on eBay.
They all say Stompin' Tom Connors on them.
You don't even know. One of every 3 of my Junos is Blue Rodeo. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Cuddy.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being out in Vancouver. I'm looking forward to see you. I'm so happy you're doing it. And it's so nice to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Nice to see you.
Come by all the time. I love hanging with you too.